All right, so we want to solve this guy. Well, it's not too bad. But the first thing we want to do is we want to simplify everything in terms of sine and cosine. And the reason for that is because all these values, sine of 2 pi over 3, sine or cosine of 7 pi over 4, sine and cosine of 2 pi over 3, all those values can be found on the unit circle. So it's going to be pretty nice to put everything in terms of sine and cosine, and then we can just look at the values on the unit circle. It'll save us a lot of time. So first let's write down cotangent and tangent. What are those in terms of sine and cosine? Well, we know tangent of our angle is going to equal sine of our angle over cosine of our angle. And we know that cotangent of our angle is going to be the opposite, right? Cosine of beta over sine of beta. So, rewriting this, well, we can keep the sign, right? The sign's already in terms of sine and or cosine, so there's no need to change that. So we have sine of 2 pi over 3. And now that's divided by cotangent of 2 pi over 3. Well, cotangent is equal to that, so that is cosine of 2 pi over 3 all over sine of 2 pi over 3. Okay, and then all of this is going to be multiplied by our tangent of 7 pi over 4. Well, we know tangent is sine over cosine, so that's just going to be sine of 7 pi over 4 all over cosine of 7 pi over 4. So, here we can either simplify things a little bit, kind of rearrange it so we don't have, a fraction in the denominator, or we can just plug in our values. It's not going to make a huge difference. Either way, we're going to have to simplify it. But let's just simplify it now. So, we want to get this fraction out of the denominator. We don't want a fraction in the denominator. That's no fun. Well, we can remember that a over b divided by c over d equals to a over b times d over c. In other words, we can take this fraction in the denominator, we can flip the numerator and denominator, and then multiply it by our numerator. So, in the numerator, we only have sine, but that still is a fraction. We can still write that as a fraction. Sine of 2 pi over 3 over 1. So we would have sine 2 pi over 3 over, well, if we flip this guy, that fraction in the denominator, we are still going to have cosine on the bottom. And then we would just have sine up here. Sine of 2 pi over 3. Okay, and then we just want to multiply that against our other fraction, this guy here. So that would be then sine of 7 pi over 4 over cosine of 7 pi over 4. All right, so now we got rid of the fraction in the denominator. Now we can just plug in what our values are for sine of 2 pi over 3, cosine 2 pi over 3, etc. And then we can just simplify till we have an exact answer. So, sine of 2 pi over 3, looking at the unit circle, that's root 3 over 2. Okay. Now, we also have another sine of 2 pi over 3. Well, we know sine of 2 pi over 3 is root 3 over 2. So I can do one of two things. I can write times root 3 over 2, or I can just square this. Right? Root 3 over 2 times root 3 over 2 is the same as root 3 over 2 squared. Okay. Then we have cosine of 2 pi over 3. Well, that's negative a half. And then we want to multiply. Well, we have sine of 7 pi over 4. That's negative root 2 over 2. And then we're going to have cosine of 7 pi over 4, which is root 2 over 2. So, now we can simplify this a bit more. Well, root 3 over 2 squared is the same as 3 over 4. We can remember this because a over b squared equals a squared over b squared. Okay, now this here is getting multiplied by a negative root 2 over 2. I'm now just combining both of these fractions. Then we're going to have a negative a half times a root 2 over 2. Well, that's simple. They're two fractions. We're multiplying them, so we can just multiply the numerators and then divide that by the product of the denominators. So negative 1 times root 2, negative root 2, all over 2 times 2, 4. Okay, well, here I see we have another fraction in the denominator, so let's get rid of the fraction in the denominator. We will apply this same rule again. So we are going to have 3 over 4 times negative root 2 over 2. And if I flip the denominator, that would be times 4 over negative root 2. And now this here is really cool. This here is really cool because everything is going to cancel out pretty nicely. So this negative root 2 is going to cancel out this negative root 2. This 4 is going to cancel out with this 4. And I'm left with 3 over 2, or 1.5. And that's the answer.